Hi there everybody, I'm David, and there's a ton of different RPG franchises out there, a lot of them with some long-running histories spanning back literally decades. So here, I want to give you like a quick primer or beginner's course on how to best get into these long-running franchises and really just kind of like say, hey, this here game is the best one to start with. And I do think that is worth a sub, as I'm trying my best this year to hit 100,000 subscribers, and with your help, and your like, and your sub, I do think that I can make it. So now, let me go ahead and start going through the most famous RPG franchises out there and letting you know which game is the best one to start with. First up in the Final Fantasy franchise, we have Final Fantasy IX. Not only is this entry one of the most traditional entries in the entire series, it's also one of the most accessible. Being released just about everywhere, I really do feel like this gives you the best taste of what the whole series is about. From the traditional black and white mages to summons and knights and thieves, all in a medieval setting, this has it all, including some throwbacks and Easter eggs to previous games in the series, which you'll totally appreciate whenever you do go back to play all the earlier entries. The world map is massive and the battle system is traditionally turn-based, and the skill upgrade system is incredibly easy to learn, where you just kind of like learn various abilities based upon what gear you have equipped. The characters are endearing and funny, and the storyline will have you hooked. That is, if you don't get lost in all those chocobo side quests. If you really want to know what this whole franchise is about, this entry will definitely give you the best feel for it all. For the Dragon Quest series, we have Dragon Quest XI S. This is the most recent entry in the franchise, and while it does have a reputation of being kind of old school, this entry really turned it up with quality of life improvements, making it much more accessible than all the older ones. Not only is there full voice acting, but the world is massive and beautiful, and because of that, you can really appreciate the late Akira Toriyama's art style, because it's just on full display here. Rather than having to deal with complicated class systems and progressions, you get characters who join up in set, traditional Dragon Quest classes, and you can upgrade them in like a skill tree type of system. But what I think that I really enjoy the most about this entry though is that it didn't leave its past behind. Yeah, it went fully 3D, but if you want to, you can also make it go back into 2D and then play it like an SNES game, really giving you the best of both worlds and allowing you to go back and forth between the two experiences and see both the old and the new Dragon Quests at the same time. Next up, the Mana series, we have Trials of Mana. As far as action RPGs go, the Mana series is one of my favorites, and this recent remake of the third game in the series is a fantastic place for you to start your journey. Here you get to choose between 3 different party members out of a total of 6 as you journey across the land to save the mana crystals, change up your classes, and play through 3 different stories to get all the different endings. I do think though that Trials of Mana really showcases the series to best advantage, because you get to try out so many different combat styles and fight off those classic enemies, as well as meet iconic characters like Flammy, the little cactus, and Vuskov the turtle. The world's expansive, and each culture and area is different. I guarantee that if you try it out, you will just fall in love with it. Mana hit its stride here, and it looks to keep on going in the latest entry, Visions of Mana, too. Next up with the Fire Emblem series, we have Fire Emblem Three Houses. This could very well be like the longest running strategy RPG series in existence, and as such, it can be rather difficult to recommend a good place to start, but I am going to be trying my best. For the most part, just about every single Fire Emblem entry before Fire Emblem Awakening is not a good place to start, simply because of the brutal nature of permadeath. But lately, Fire Emblem has gotten much more user-friendly, culminating with Three Houses. This entry is a whole lot different from pretty much every other entry before it, but I think that those differences do allow it to be a good entry point. Focusing equally on social sim mechanics as well as battling, it kind of gives you like the best of both worlds. Not only that though, but it has 4 separate story routes, allowing for tons of replayability and multiple difficulty modes, which really can help ease a beginner into the complicated nature of the weapon triangle system. Though I will give this one caveat. If you are not a fan of the Persona series or social sims in general, you might want to try the other Nintendo Switch Fire Emblem entry, which is Fire Emblem Engage, because that one really does just focus on the battle mechanics. Either way though, you can't go wrong with either entry as a good starting point. From the Tales of series, we have Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition. Sometimes it can be tempting to just say, hey, the most recent entry in a certain franchise is the best place to start. But I don't think that Arise is a very good starting point for Tales, because it can be a bit on the complex side. So instead, I'm going to look back and recommend Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition, and there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, I think the main character Yuri is like the best hero that we've ever gotten in the series. He's totally relatable, and the rest of the cast is riotously funny. Not only that, but the traditional world map allows for tons of exploration, and the combat still holds up to this day. In some of the newer Tales of series, combat can be incredibly complicated, and I'm looking at Eustasteria and Berseria. But Vesperia's combat is still simple enough for a beginner to handle. It eases you into the action, and as far as the upgrading system is concerned, again, that's super simple and easy, because just like in Final Fantasy IX, it's based upon the equipment that you wear. I think what's really nice about this as an entry point is that you're going to be getting the best of both worlds. You're getting modern quality of life features, along with like the retro style gameplay, so you get to see everything that the series has to offer in just one entry. From the Shin Megami Tensei series, we have Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne Remastered. This franchise here is easily the hardest of all the games on the list, and as such, it can be difficult to recommend a proper entry point, but sometimes you just gotta dive right on in. And that's why I'm going to go ahead and recommend this entry where I personally began the series, as well as being the first entry released in the West. And though while I did play the PS2 version, I would definitely instead recommend the recent remaster, just because of the quality of life features that make it a bit easier for beginners, such as an included easy mode, the option to have Japanese or English voice acting, a suspend save option, and the absolute godsend of manual skill inheritance. If this entry point was good enough for me, as well as thousands of other people in the West, it's good enough for you too. These are post-apocalyptic, grind-heavy, and difficult RPGs that really do test your turn-based combat skills. Add to the fact that there's both demon recruitment and fusion to create even more powerful monsters, and you've got something that you can really sink a whole lot of hours into. If Final Fantasy is like middle of the road and Dragon Quest is bright, cheery, and beautiful, then Shin Megami Tensei is dark, dreary, and demonic. But sometimes that's just what the doctor ordered. From the Atelier series, we have Atelier Ryza 1. Similar to the aforementioned Fire Emblem games, it is very difficult to recommend the earlier Atelier games as a good starting point, simply because they're just so obtuse, not only in the crafting mechanics, but also in the unforgivably strict time limit mechanics. The Ryza trilogy, though, drops both of those, and it allows for a much more lighthearted casual adventure. Here, you still get the fun of the crafting system as well as your slice of life adventure, but you don't have to deal with all the stresses of the prior games. Not only that, but the story in Ryza is well told, and the combat's incredibly fast-paced and fun. It's kind of like real-time meets turn-based, where you kind of control everybody at the same time, so it does keep you on your toes as you explore the beautiful environments and gather ingredients. But unlike other entries in the series, you're kind of able to automate the gathering and item synthesis aspects, so you don't have to deal with all the minutia, and instead, you're just able to enjoy the game for what it is, rather than getting bogged down in all the BS that plagued the older games. From the Breath of Fire series, we have Breath of Fire 3. While every single other entry on this list deals with franchises that are still ongoing and alive, I'm a retro guy at heart, and I had to at least include one entry into a retro series on this list, so I chose Breath of Fire 3. And I do think that this is the quintessential entry into the series, showcasing to you what it's all about, and giving you a dynamic and diverse cast of characters from all sorts of different animalistic species, and showcasing the loving relationship between star-crossed lovers Ryu and Nina. The combat's turn-based, but with some added fun mechanics, like the ability to examine monsters and acquire their skills, hook your characters up to masters and have them get specializations, or find dragon genes and fuse Ryu into whatever dragon form you would like. Not to mention having agility really come into play by having your faster characters get extra turns and then run circles around the enemies. With bright, upbeat graphics and a cool, smooth jazz soundtrack, you can just kind of relax and melt into your chair as you soak in what Breath of Fire is all about. Then from the Persona series, we have Persona 5 Royal. Kind of like Fire Emblem, you can almost split the Persona series in two, because the first two games in the series are nothing like the last three. But of those last 3 games, the most recent one is definitely the best place to start. It has the most leeway in the social link system, so you don't have to meticulously follow a guide to ensure that you max out everybody's social links. For those unaware, pretty much half of this game consists of attending school, studying, going to part-time jobs, or just hanging around town. While the other half of the game has you take on a persona of a phantom thief, as you dive into the metaverse and traverse palaces to change people's hearts. This also has the best iteration of the press turn combat system, which is also in the SMT series, where you get additional turns by striking enemies' weaknesses or knocking them down. I would honestly say though, if you do enjoy Persona 5, then just work backwards from here through the series, and then go to 4 and then 3, then if you really want to, go on into 2 and 1. Though, again, those are entirely different beasts. And bringing up the rear with the Ys series, we have Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana. Here we are a final entry in yet another long-running series from the 1980s, Ys. And even though each entry is based upon Adol's diary entries, none of them are really connected to one another, so you can start wherever you want to. That being the case, I would recommend starting at the fan favorite Ys 8. Some of the earlier entries can be a bit archaic, using bump combat systems, or having to deal with Adol traveling alone. But here, he's accompanied by 5 other party members, as he travels through the cursed Isle of Siren and tries to find a way to escape back to the mainland. But what really sets it apart from the rest of the games in the series are the town building mechanics, as you have to go off and rescue the other survivors of the shipwreck, and then build up your settlement where you slowly branch off and explore the rest of the island. The only negative that I could possibly say about starting here would be that, it's just so good. It'll be so hard to go back to the previous entries and play them after experiencing the masterpiece that is Ys 8. But if you're anything like me, that's not going to stop you, because I just can't get enough of Adol and Dogi's little bromances throughout this long-running series. The key, like in all these other franchises, is to just start somewhere. So I do hope that this video helped you out with some great starting points to all these long-running franchises. But now, I would like to know, what other starting points would you recommend in some other long-running RPG franchises, and why? Let's discuss all that in the comments. And if you like this video, here's another one that I really think that you're going to like. So please do be sure to check that out and enjoy it. And as always, have a good day.